Attention to what's been happening in one of the other big court cases in the country. The AmaZulu royal family's succession battle kicked off in court yesterday. It's very complicated, though, as many await the outcome. The issue has yet again brought to the fore the importance of having a will and having it done properly. Now, let's discuss this with Alex Simeonides from Capital Legacy, leading provider of wills here in South Africa. And Alex, morning to you. And here's the problem. A lot of people, A, don't have a will, and B, if they do, it's not done properly, and come the inevitable sad day when someone passes on, it can get very messy, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole saga has done no favors for people like us in our quest to get people to get wills, because it's saying, well, you know, you also have this chance of not getting it done well, and we need to understand why this whole situation is not done well, because you still need to get a will, and I just hope that this doesn't detract from people going out there and getting a will, because that is ultimately the worst thing. But this whole saga has a lot of questions, Gareth. You know, how's things ended up like this? You know, I was dusting off the cobwebs this morning in preparation for our chats and just getting through my thoughts from last year, Gareth. And it just kind of occurred to me, you know, how could this happen when surely the king was consulted with qualified attorneys? Why was there no thoughts into these kind of cases that have been brought now to Pietermaritzburg and what could happen? Why was there no discussion and amongst the family? And I think that's one of the biggest problems here that's caused all of the saga.
Apart from the discussions, though, you raise a good point, because I've known many friends and families over the years where discussions have been had about what's going to happen to an estate, or what's going to happen when someone does pass on, probably the breadwinner, in this case, the king of the Zulu nation, which is obviously a whole different kettle of fish. But discussions are one thing, but if that's not followed through legally with someone like you, does it matter what anyone says around the Sunday lunch table? If it's not in the will, it can't be executed upon, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah, I'd say it does matter, because, you know, we see it every day, and this is the exact case in point. People put stuff in the will, and then they shut up about it. And then when the will gets read, it blindsides everyone. And then people react in different ways, and in this case, in ways that are destructive, potentially destructive to the legacy of the king. So I think they've got to go hand in hand. You know, the legal T's and C's need to be cross-checked, and especially with something as complex as the Zulu kingdom, needs to be cross-checked, double-checked, and then, as best as you can, aired and discussed, so that there's a degree of predictability. And I think this is the underlying cause of the whole saga.
It is, and if you're comfortable with it, Alex, perhaps we could weigh in a little bit into the actual legal wranglings around this, and your views, particularly around the AmaZulu royal house. How do you think a court is going to look at this? There is a will and testament that arguably has forged signatures and information that certain members of the royal family don't agree with. But in the end, the court is sitting with the will of the late king. How much leeway really does a court, do you think, have when it comes to erring and moving away from what is inside a final will and testament?
So I'll be very, very shocked if the court is going to find that the will was invalid. To the best of my understanding, the will was done properly. It was witnessed correctly. It was done under the guidance of an attorney. So I'll be very shocked if it's thrown out. And then that begs the question, if it is, you know, what is the next previous valid will? Because maybe people are asking for this one to be renounced, but what we don't know is there another will? And then that goes right back to the beginning there, Gareth, where there's another application that's been made for the half share of the estate by virtue of marriage. And I think that's got credibility. You know, recently the Civil Marriages Act came into place, and this could be deemed to be an in-community of property. So people could be squabbling about half the estate and not the whole estate. So I think that actually needs to be the first question for everyone. Is this thing valid? Is this first marriage valid? And does it entitle that estate to half of the Zulu nation estate? And then from that, you know, if you're talking about the validity of a will, does that will extend to Swaziland? Does it extend to South African assets? Does it extend to assets around the world? Are there other jurisdictions at play here that haven't been thought about? I find it very unlikely that the wealth of King Goodwill is just here in Swaziland and South Africa. It's more than likely there are other assets located elsewhere. And so it's going to be, even if they do find the will invalid, which I find unlikely, I think they've got other fights that they're up against for these other, maybe you call it treasures, that are maybe scattered around the world.
And Alex, I think you've put the fear into a lot of people who thought they maybe had their will and final testaments in order and everything would be fine come that fateful day. But I think hopefully someone listening now is going, maybe I should sit down with someone like Alex and make sure I've got everything in place before it gets messy afterwards. Capital Legacies, Alex Simeonides joining us. Alex, what a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much for your time.